The U.S. says its efforts to impose a worldwide embargo on Iranian oil is already working. In the last 11 months, the Trump administration says Iran has lost about $10 billion in oil revenue. All this, says Washington, to punish Tehran for what it calls the government's, quote, malign ways. The Trump administration and our allies are determined to sustain and expand the maximum economic pressure campaign against Iran to end the regime's destabilizing activity, threatening the United States, our partners and allies, and security in the Middle East.
These demands are not just coming from the United States government and many of our allies and partners. They are similar to what we hear from the Iranian people themselves.
The U.S. imposed oil sanctions on Iran in May 2018 after it withdrew from what President Donald Trump called the ineffective Iran nuclear deal. The U.S. wanted to cut off Iran's ability to support Hezbollah and Houthi fighters, as well as send aid to governments in Syria and Venezuela. Last fall, when oil supplies were tight, the U.S. gave several countries permission to wrap up their existing Iranian oil purchases by no later than May 2nd. But now, the U.S. says supplies are plentiful, and so the 5 countries still importing Iranian crude, China, India, Turkey, Japan, and South Korea, no longer have a reason to keep buying from Tehran.
To conduct these transactions, one almost always needs to participate in the financial markets, and we intend to enforce the sanctions. We don't lay out sanctions that we don't have any intention of encouraging countries to cooperate with.
Analysts say it's important to look at the impact sanctions could have on ties between the U.S. and other countries. For example, how sanctions could derail current Chinese-American trade talks. But analysts say it's just as important to consider why the White House considers Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and not other oil-producing nations, key to making the Iranian embargo work.
I think that actually feeds into this narrative of this very close relationship that the President Trump has with the Saudi royal family. And of course, the United States is, again, this is the president who looks at issues from a transactional standpoint.
State Department officials won't say just how soon after May 3rd that the U.S. will impose sanctions on countries still buying oil from Iran. But they are adamant. They say the only way to get Iran to change its behavior is by imposing an embargo. And the only way to make certain that the embargo works is to impose sanctions on other countries, even if those countries happen to be the U.S.'s friends. Rosiland, Al Jazeera, the State Department.